I'm a grandpa. I've got 10 grandchildren. And when they reach the end of primary 7, I've written each one of them a grandpa letter. A letter of advice, because there's a tendency to listen to grandpa more than to listen to mommy and daddy, as everybody knows. And I've had to give them proper advice, because by then they're able to absorb things. And I've had to tell each one of them that if Scotland does not become independent and remains with the failing United Kingdom, the strongest advice I can give them is to get the best skill set you can have, or the best academic qualifications if you're lucky enough to go to university, in order that you can get out. I'm a grandpa and I've had to tell them that. At Kilmarnock on Monday night, right at the end, a young woman got up, young mother, and she said she didn't want to ask a question. She wanted to make an appeal to those who were swithering and those who were voting no. She said that her family in Kilmarnock had worked at Massey Ferguson, tractor people. When it closed, her father took the family to Canada. And she said she had to be dragged from the arms of her grandpa because it was a traumatic occasion for her. And she spent 16 years in Canada before she could come back. And she made the plea to that audience: don't let it be that I and my husband are forced abroad again, and that our grandchildren have to be torn from the arms of their grandparents in order that we can find prosperity somewhere outside our own country. It was an electric moment, because it didn't matter what the politicians said on that platform. She actually summed it up and got the essence of the issue that's facing us at the present time. I've talked about a working class parliament. One of the things that Margo said was the problem with the Scottish working class is that we are better than we think we are. Far better than we think we are. Because we've been taught that we're not good enough. That's where the too wee, too small syndrome comes in to capture us. We are a very talented people. Very talented. I've been in many places in the world, working there. And I've got no questions. Tommy says we're no better than anybody else, but by God, we're no worse than anybody else. We're a talented people. And the working class in Scotland has a latent power which we've never used. There's an old miner in Netherthird in Cumnock, way back at a meeting, got up and said the problem with the Scottish working class is that we've never quite understood that all our socialist dreams have been destroyed by the London connection. And only when we destroy the London connection can we make those dreams become a reality inside our own country. I'm a member of the SNP, but I am determined that I will not vote for the SNP in the first independent elections in 2016, because my experience in this campaign is that Scottish politics is going to be turned upside down, and what's going to emerge is a genuine socialist party that can win a majority in Holyrood, and that's who I'll be voting for. In October 1974, I fought an election as a Labour MP on the slogan of shifting the balance of wealth and power to the working people and their families. It never happened, and it cannot happen inside the United Kingdom. How many folk in here read the Daily Telegraph? I do. I want to know how the Tories are thinking south of the border. And David Miliband gambled on the fact that nobody in here reads the Daily Telegraph, because 5 weeks ago he had an article in the Daily Telegraph. And in that article, what was his concerns? It was the middle class in England. They were getting squeezed. £120,000 a year, they were finding it really tough going. And what he said was that they were his priority. That's the problem with the Labour Party. Even if you think socialist up here, for Labour to win south of the border, they've got to pander to Middle England. And if they pander to Middle England and get in, then it's Middle England policies that they actually pursue. And so we get the socialist song up here and nothing happens after we've voted for it. Think what will happen to the Labour Party once Middle England's off its back, when it doesn't need to bother what Miliband or anybody else says, and it's reliant solely on what it says and what it does in relation to the Scottish working class. What they don't realise at Holyrood, the suits I'm talking about, what they don't realise is that this campaign is the greatest civic movement Scotland has ever had, and it surpasses the poll tax. You, the people, are being politicised for the first time in 30 years. Meetings of this kind cannot happen unless the people are becoming engaged intellectually. All over this country, there's groups of young people, I mean they're young by comparison with me, they're working their socks off, and I've said to them, don't you go home on the 19th of September when we get a yes vote. You have created the victory here. You've learned about yourself. You learned about the ability to organise. You've learned about the ability to analyse policies. You've learned about the ability to debate. Now, learn, understand the latent power that you have and turn it into real power when we come to elect an independent Scottish Government. Just think of this. Think of the energy that we have had to expend over the years, defending closures, defending unemployment, trying to keep jobs, defending ourselves against the poll tax, defending ourselves against the bedroom tax. What a different country this will be if we don't need to defend any longer, that we can use our energies to build, to do something progressive for our people and our young people. Right. As Tommy says, this isn't about Alec. You have to take your hat off to Alec and the SNP for getting us to this point. This is about my grandchildren and your grandchildren and you. One other thing, I mentioned aircraft carriers and how we can be different. There's a woman called Justine Greening, who is the International Development Secretary of the Coalition Government. And in the Scotsman, which never fails to report these very progressive opinions, and it says, yes vote would harm world's poorest, claims the UK minister. Well, the other aircraft carrier I mentioned, I've written a book called In Place of Fear 2. And some of my friends said to me, oh, don't put that bit in, Jim. You know, folk will mock the idea. I mean, that'll ruin the other parts that you're arguing about. Anyway, I put it in. And I drew this idea from a book called, a boat called the Africa Mercy, which is a 16,500 ton ship, a hospital ship, which goes into the poorest parts of Africa where folk don't have any medical cover. They have done, in a year, they do 3,300 surgical operations. They've got operating theatres inside. They go and build up paramedical ability in the villages. They take away cataracts from people who have been blinded. They cure cleft palates for tiny children. Just think of the difference that makes to those individual lives with the work that it does. And I thought, well, there's an aircraft carrier. They don't know what to do with it. They would like to sell it. Argentina would buy it, but they can't sell it to Argentina. India doesn't need it, nor does China. They build their own. We'll take it. It's not an asset, it's a liability, because it's something they can't get rid of. Let us take it. And let us use part of the repatriated money that will come our way from the Ministry of Defence. We contribute about £2.5 billion a year to the British Ministry of Defence. That £2.5 billion will be available for us in an independent Scotland. And so without spending an extra penny, let us turn that aircraft carrier into a hospital ship. It costs £35 million a year to run. Just think of the difference. If a 16,500 tonne ship can do 3,300 operations, think what a 70,000 tonne hospital ship can do in Africa and Asia to deliver people. And what I call it in that book, and I hope it does sail, with a saltire in one end, no aircraft on board to kill people, sending our young men and women out to heal people all over the world. Just think what that'll do for the poor people. I want to finish by pointing out something that may appear to be obvious, but somehow or other hasn't quite been grasped yet. On the 18th of September, between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m, over 15 hours, you and me and everybody with a vote in Scotland is sovereign for the first time ever. We've never been sovereign before, but in those 15 hours, we are sovereign. It is our sovereign decision what to do with our country. What happens at 1 minute past 10? If we voted no, it'll be another flooding. If we voted yes, not only will we have kept that sovereignty, we'll have the power, working class power, to produce a working class parliament for working class people. And the cry can go out, at long, long last, our time has come.